We're going to talk about it today.
I can write it down?
You can write it down. Sure, you can write it down. Of course, you should write it down.
Tzelia, ken?
Tzelia. Tzelia.
Tzelia.
Tzelia. Tzli. Tzli is roasted. We're going to talk about it in a minute. We're going to talk about it. Let everybody finish taking their notes, and then we'll discuss it one more time. You know your Hebrew words? Okay, Hananel, what is a nevela?
Proper secretar.
Not proper shechita. Not equals. It's when you don't have a proper shechita. This is another Hebrew word, by the way. Shechita.
Hunting, something like that.
That's an example of how you would get a nevela by shooting an animal instead of shechita. But a nevela is an animal which is not kosher because it did not be killed by proper slaughter, kosher slaughter. Right?
Something like a car accident.
That's right. That's right. That's right. The food is not kosher. That animal cannot be made kosher. Yes.
But let me say, the knife was problem with the knife.
That's right. Also, if the knife had a nick in it, the shechita is no good. It's called nevela. There was a problem with the shechita. Very good. Okay? So we know what nevela is. Okay. Israel. You're catching up? You're still taking notes? Okay. Eitan. What can you tell me about chelev? What is chelev?
It's forbidden fats. Because some fats are forbidden to eat. You need to check them if they are. If they are, it's not
You have to
kosher.
take them out. You have to take them out of the animal. Now, the tricky part, good morning, Pinchas. The tricky part is that the fat, which is forbidden, that's called chelev, there's another word of, it's not the regular fats, that's just called shuman. Shuman is what we call the regular fats. That is kosher. Chelev is non-kosher, right? So that's another Hebrew word for you to learn, shuman. When you have in front of you, on your plate, a piece of shuman and a piece of chelev, they look exactly the same. They're both fats. One is forbidden by the Torah, the rest of them are allowed by the Torah. It's very confusing. So you better make sure that chelev gets, the non-kosher stuff has to be thrown away. Otherwise you could be eating non-kosher by accident. Okay, but as I said, usually they do this right after the shechita. They take away all the forbidden parts of the animal. Chelev. Chelev has another meaning. It also means the choicest, the best. I guess those in the time there was a Bet HaMikdash, the chelev had to be put on the mizbeach, on the altar, to be sacrificed. Give the best to God. Now we can't make a sacrifice, but we're not allowed to eat it. We have to throw it away. We can't eat the chelev. Okay, another question. Stephen, what do you tell me about Gid and Hashem? I know you want to eat. You can eat. But first answer the question.
The psychiatric nerve is...
Sciatic nerve, what is that?
We are not allowed to eat.
Right, it's in the leg. It's in the back leg of the animal. We're not allowed to eat it. We have to take it out. We said there is a...
Non-Jews.
Right. Sometimes we sell the entire back legs to the non-Jew because it's too much work to get rid of the sciatic nerve and all of its different branches. There's another word that maybe I'll teach you. Is the process of getting out the Nicor and the Chelev, the Chelev and the Gid and Hashem is called Nicor. Nicor, or in Yiddish, it's Traeger. And that means in English, it means to I would call it even the surgical removal. I'll just say removal. To remove. You have to remove these parts of the animal. You have to separate them and remove them. So here's more Hebrew and Yiddish words for you to learn. The done before you could eat. So you have to do shechita and you have to do nikur. Okay? And then, question for you, Binyamin, is give me one example of an injury to an animal which makes it treifa, or treif, the way some people pronounce it. An injury, which is very common, that makes an animal treif. A broken leg, good example. Most cows or sheep don't have broken legs. Who can give me another example?
Infection inside.
An infection? Yeah, that's right. An internal organ, and if it's diseased, it's a treifa. As I said, there's a list of 70 of them. In chicken, there's even 72. What do you say, Hanana?
Sorry, the trap for the animals, the hunter used to do it.
Trap can make a treifa, exactly. If you trap it, it can give you an injury, and then it's not kosher. Even if you do shechita, if it has an injury, it's a treifa. Right. Sometimes hunting, you actually kill the animal. That's why we said it's a nevela, because it was killed without proper shechita. But it could be if you trap it and it gets injured, then it's a treifa. And then if it dies, it's a nevela and a treifa. Sometimes I said it's an insult, right? Right? It's an insult. Ah, that disgusting man. He's a nevela and a treifa. Yeah, you want to say something else?
Hole in the lung.
Hole in the lung, very good. This is a common. It's so common that the rabbi said you have to check every animal that its lungs don't have any holes in it. And if it comes out, you put your hands over the lungs and you see if they're smooth. That's the best, the most kosher, smooth halak. However, if it has bumps on it, Ashkenazi custom is you check each bump to see if it's, what's there. Is it a hole? Is it something that maybe just, there's all sorts of growths on your body. Sometimes you have a pimple. That's not a hole. Sometimes you have a beauty mark. I said I have an injury here. Right? It really has something. So the animals on their lungs can have things too. Doesn't make it a treifa. Sephardi custom is it has to be perfectly smooth. Ashkenazi custom is you check it. It's still kosher if you check it. Okay? Good. Now I'm going to ask, what else do we have to ask? I think we covered everything that we can ask. Halak, we just said. Halak means smooth, the smooth lungs.
The gid and Hashem.
We talked about it. That's the sciatic nerve. That has to be removed by Nicor. Nicor is taking out that forbidden stuff. The gid and Hashem and the chelev.
Nicor is a profession?
Yes. It's like a shochet as a profession. A Menachem is somebody who takes out the forbidden fats and the yeah, it's a quite an art actually.
Can you write it down, please?
Sure, I did. In Hebrew, what do you mean? Nicor. It's written
Oh,
down.
Nicor.
Nicor. In Yiddish, they say Träger.
Nicor means remove.
Remove. That's right.
Git hanashir Nicor. That's how you say it?
You need to do Nikur to take out the Gid Hanasheh and the Chelev.
But the whole process of taking it out of operation is called the
Nikur. That's right.
What did the person that do it?
Menaker.
Menachem.
Menaker. Yes.
Where is it?
I can write it down if you like. The person is called a Menaker. Right. Here you have a Menaker, and here you have a Shochet.
Yeah.
In Hebrew it's Shochet and Menaker. Okay, so far so good?
Rabbi,
And the down.
Now we're going to talk about that one.
for the joint of the chicken leg, you are allowed to eat.
Of course, you're allowed to eat all the parts. Sorry?
Only the meat.
There is no sciatic nerve in chickens. There's no Gid
No, I mean,
Hanasheh in chickens.
For the joint.
So we said yesterday that there's 70 types of injuries,
Yeah.
and it really depends on how common they are. We follow the majority. Some people say, my son's rabbi says this. He says that today, in the modern farming of chickens, they're stuck together and they're fed so much that they get fat and their legs can't hold them. Most of them are treif. And he says that you can't have any chickens. It's a very extreme position. Most of the rabbis in the world make kosher chickens. These rabbis say, no, you have to look at the reality. And the reality is, so many chickens have broken legs, so many chickens, their muscles are stretched and they come apart at the joint, and so they're not kosher. And it doesn't only mean that chickens are not kosher, because nobody checks them. It's either you deny that, or if you say that, you can't have any chicken. And if you say that you can't even have any eggs. Because the eggs come from a treif chicken. If all chickens are treif, then all the eggs are treif. Except for free-range chickens. Free-range, the chickens are not forced into small little pens.
But it's different, right? We only eat the male, and the female is for the egg.
Yeah, doesn't matter. The chickens, the females are raised also in the same manner.
Oh.
The chickens are also put, fattened up and put in very small places, and that's what they claim. Anyways, I eat chicken and I eat eggs. Can you think of a more Jewish food than chicken soup? Right? For me, I can't have Shabbat. It's not Shabbat if I don't have chicken soup. That's traditional. So it's a very big innovation to say that all the chickens are treif because they all have broken bones or their sinews have come off. So, but some rabbis say that this is the reality. You can't close your eyes to reality. I don't know. I hope they're wrong. But I'm relying on all those other rabbis who've checked it out and said, it's a minority, we follow the majority, and it's only a minority, we follow the rules of halacha, say, you follow, most of the chickens are kosher, and so for you can assume the chicken is kosher. Yes.
In this soup, chicken soup,
Yeah, chicken soup. You can use any part you like. Why?
Bones.
Sure. Some people put in bones from chicken. Some people put bones from meat. It's fine as long as it's kosher.
I've never seen it.
Never.
So that's why.
Aha. I've seen. Because as I said, my son came over for Shabbat and he doesn't want to eat chicken soup. So we made him meat soup. We made him soup with meat instead. Meat he still eats. Baruch Hashem. Yes.
For an animal to be kosher, does the secretar have to be a Jew or just have to
Yes.
be a rabbi? In the...
No, it has to be a Jew. It has to be a Jew. Jew must do the shechita. Somebody who's obligated in the laws of the Torah, including the law of shechita, has to be used. You can't use a non-Jew to do shechita.
And for chickens, it's easy to shechita?
Yeah, shechita is much easier for chickens. Yeah. Yeah.
But can we cook chicken and meat together?
Yes. Yes. Just no meat and milk.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now there's one other problem. There's one other prohibited part. And this is prohibited in animals as well as chicken. We said there's no chelev in chicken and there's no gida nashe in chicken. But there is this part. And this part is called dam. It's a Hebrew word for blood. Blood. Sheep have blood. What's the question?
No.
What about the sheep? Yes. They have. No. Gida nashe in sheep. I can't remember. Let me see if I see it here. The gida nashe is yes, I think so. Yes, you have to take that out. In a big sheep, it's about 4 centimeters long. It's not that long. In an ox, it's about 8 centimeters long. Mm-hmm. It's just a small piece, but you have to get out all the branches of it and so forth. So, rabbinically, we take out more. We take out the entire nerve, all the way up to the hip bone, and all the different, as I said, the branches of it as well. So, but yeah, sure. There's gida nashe in all animals. It's part of the way the animal moves. Part of the animal moves with its legs.
What about fish?
Fish don't have shechita. Fish don't have legs, and so there's no gida nashe. And fish don't have chelev, and fish don't have forbidden blood either. It's a good question, because now we're talking about the prohibition of blood. By fish, even if you see a little bit of red blood in there, it's not considered halachically blood. Blood is connected to more developed animals that have to be shechita. There's no, you don't have to kill the fish with a special shechita.
But can a fish be in the villa, like it's injured by
No.
other fish?
You mean treifa. You mean treifa.
Can treifa.
Treifa. No.
Fish, all the
Fish are kosher, yeah. There's not.
But they are also not a kosher way to slaughter them. Because
That's right. They don't have to be slaughtered. Take a hammer and kill the fish, no problem.
So if you
Use a hook, you can fish. You fish. Usually the animal's killed by a hook. That's not a shechita. The fish is caught on a hook, right? There's no mitzvah of shechita by fish. By the way, welcome to Israel. There are many times power outages, and especially when it rains, when you need it most. You need the electricity most. But bring a sweater, and hopefully they'll take care of it quickly. You have a question, yeah, Michael.
but can it also allowed, like if a Jew lives in Galut, you can buy fish from the non-Jewish market?
Sure.
But some places...
Look for fins and scales, right?
Okay, but let me say I find a place where they sell kosher fish, but I know Netherlands, they like to fry the fish together with
No, not good. No.
Good.
Only fresh. You can't take... As long as if it's been cooked or processed in any way, that's a problem. Talking about fresh fish, yes, fresh fish. Yeah. You can't go to a non-kosher restaurant and order fish because maybe they fried it up in shrimps or in oil, which is not kosher, or in pork or in fats and all sorts of stuff. I'm just talking about fresh, the raw ingredients. Then you take it to your own home and you put it on your own pan and you cook it up the way you like. Yes.
If you are, let me say, you go on vacation to a country, let me say.
The Netherlands, for example. Let's just take an example.
There's no Jewish store. But are you allowed to buy chips from the chips store?
Probably not, because the chips are fried in oil, and you don't know which oil they used. And maybe they put in some shrimp sometime in the same oil. Maybe they use it. You need supervision. You can't. Anything which is a kitchen has many different uses, and so you can't. You can buy potatoes and cook them up in your own pot. Buy fish and put them in your own pot or in your own oven. I mentioned the other day that you can double cover it and put it in any oven if you need to. So, yeah.
Now you have like places where they only sell chips, no sauce, no snacks, and they use sunflower oil.
It's a good question. So it could be allowed. If you're sure. If you're absolutely sure and you've checked it out, that they don't have any other non-kosher ingredients and they don't use that at any other time for anything else, then it's kosher. Yeah.
But it's no problem that it's a non-Jew who
No.
like that?
No.
Why not?
No, we're going to talk about. There's other prohibitions of things cooked by a non-Jew. But it applies to food which is respectable and more higher level dishes of not chips. I don't think is ole al shulchan melachim. Something it means that the definition of halacha is you're not allowed to eat food cooked by a non-Jew if it's fit for serving before a dignitary, before a king. So chips, probably not. So I wouldn't say there's a problem with being cooked by a non-Jew. Yeah.
If you ask those people, where you boil those chips, and say, it's kosher, can you trust them?
No, you have to see it yourself. You have to know yourself. You can't. Of course, they want you to buy, so they'll say, "No, yeah, it's all fine."
But in New York, you come to a restaurant to eat, you want to eat something.
Yeah.
You are allowed to go to the kitchen to
Great. Sure, you can go.
High quality restaurants, you can go to the kitchen.
But you're not there all day. You can see what they're doing now for 5 minutes, but then when you turn your back, they could be lying to you.
You know how to go to a restaurant?
Normally, they come to ask you to come.
It's not enough, because it could be a half an hour before that. They had another customer, and he said, "Cook me up some shrimps." In the same pan that he's cooking you up your kosher fish. He says, come, I'll show you. Look, there's scales, there's fins. I can show you, this is kosher fish. So you say, I'll go back to my table, no problem, great. In the meantime, he's using the same pan that you didn't see. Before that, it was used for shrimps or some other non-kosher food. You can't just eat in a non-kosher restaurant. You need proper supervision. It's very dangerous business. If you want to keep kosher, you've got to make sure.
But you can go to the kitchen and look things.
If you stay there all day, no problem.
No.
You got to be there all day. What do you mean? Sorry? It's a question of time, sure, and the level of supervision. Just going in for 1 minute and looking at everything okay. That's what you should do if it's a kosher restaurant, to make sure that the kosher is keeping to all the rules. And that's on top of the rabbi's supervision. But to a non-kosher restaurant, to go in for 1 minute, that doesn't do anything.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about the restaurants non-kosher.
If it's a kosher restaurant, it's a good thing to see, but you don't have to. You rely on the rabbi who says it's kosher, right? Kosher means that the rabbi is in charge of making sure that all the ingredients are kosher, they cook it up in the proper way. If it's a nice dish, they make sure that a Jew lights the fire and puts the pan on the fire. So if it has a kosher supervision, That's what you're relying on. And it's always good to ask because there's different levels. We'll talk about that a little more when we get to that shortcut. Of course, that shortcut is what most of us do, is that we rely on the certificate. Yes?
The most the question I get from my Christian friend, right?
Yeah, what's the biggest question you get?
The pig, about the pig.
Pig is, yeah.
It took his cut and pig food, right?
Right.
Why? Only the pig.
Ah.
That's the question I get from them.
Right.
But, I can't give them the answer.
Okay. So I'll give you the answer. The truth is that the Talmud gives the pig as an example of an animal which is not kosher, and it has the Talmud says that it has one of the two signs. It's very unique because it has split hooves. A pig has split hooves, and the Talmud says the pig lies on its back. We know the pigs like to roll around in the mud. It lies on its back, and it picks up its feet and shows you its feet. And it says, look, you see, I'm kosher. He's like trying to trick you. But really, it's not kosher because it doesn't have the other sign. The other sign is chewing its cud. A pig does not chew its cud. Here, it doesn't. We said that chewing its cud means it has two stages. It swallows and then brings it into its stomach. It turns into pellets, and then he regurgitates those pellets back into his mouth and chews and chews and chews. Pig doesn't do that. Pig doesn't do that, and so it may look from the outside like it's kosher, but it's become the symbol of the most non-kosher thing. It's also a disgusting animal. It lives in the mud and dirty, and so some people.
They don't sweat, they say. They don't
Wow.
Sweat. They don't sweat, so it's about the poison inside.
Yeah, some people explain that it's not healthy because of that, but for whatever reason, it's clear that this is, an example of a non-kosher animal. Okay, it's explicitly stated in the Torah. It says that it has split hooves, but it does not chew its cud. Okay, it does not chew its cud. It does not. All right. Other questions? Pinchas.
You want heart bison. He can
Bison.
He can eat.
Yes. Yes.
You the bison was killed by the tiger night.
You tell me, what's that called? If a bison is killed by a tiger, what do we call the animal?
We can eat or eat.
I'm asking you. We learned. We have a name for an animal that was injured and killed without shechita. What are the Hebrew names for that? We learned it here. Nevela is when it doesn't have a proper shechita. And treifa, if it was only injured, but that injury makes it non-kosher. But if it's trapped without injury, then if you do proper slaughter, proper shechita, it's kosher. It's one of the 11 types of chaya. We talked about it the other day. There's chaya and be'ema, wild animals and domesticated animals. The three types I asked for at the top, the three kosher animals, the cows, the sheep, and the goats, those are the most common ones because those are also mentioned in the Torah that we brought sacrifices. But the chaya, there's a list in the Torah of 11 kosher ones, and most rabbis assume that bison is one of them. So it's like deer, venison. It's kosher. It's a kosher animal if you do proper shechita, and if it's not injured If it's not a nevela and it's not a treifa, then it could be a kosher food. Does that answer your question?
Bison is hot. Early died. Bison was killed a few minutes ago. All saw it was killed by tiger or lion.
We're only allowed to eat kosher animals if they have been killed by shchita, with a knife, with the special rules of how to slaughter the animal. And you're saying that it died on its own. No shechita. So it's a nevela. Do you want to translate that for Pinchas, maybe to Mandarin?
如果那个大布利是不算kosher的，一次半的，它只是像一次只是 shake 它。如果是它去几时还是给东西咬，是不kosher的。
就是一次性把它
一次性办的，所以是多一通的。
Okay, that was sometimes you need translation. So,
Not just talking about the animal,
yes.
about how to kill the way
Right.
the
So
procedure, every procedure.
you would like to know more about shechita? We talked about it a little bit the other day. The Talmud says that there are five laws of shechita. One is when you make the slit, you can't push down. One is that you can't drag, like if it tears, you can't tear. One is if you stop in the middle of the slice, it's not kosher. You have to do it all in one movement. You can't stop in the middle. Shehiyah. What are the others? I have it here. What are the others? Shihiyah, we said, is waiting in the middle. Drasa is pushing down. Chalda is if you stick the knife into the neck and you don't go from the outside into the middle. You just stick the knife in and then get to the the trachea and the esophagus that have to be cut. But you don't get it from the outside. That's not kosher. And if it's not in the right place, if it's too close to the neck or too close to the body, it has to be just right in the right place. And we said the other one is if you pull the there's a nick in the knife, or that's called Nicor. So there's 5 rules, but we're not going to talk about laws of shchita in great detail. Is that okay? Yeah.
Question. And the light need certified by some people by.
Yes, you have to learn how to make the knife sharp enough. It has to be very sharp, and you have to check the knife before the shechita and after the shechita. And if it's not kosher, afterwards, it means that maybe it got blemished, ruined, before the shechita was finished. And so the whole shechita is not kosher. So there's many rules, and usually we check the knife. Maybe I'll bring in my knife. I have a knife, I can show you. We check the knife on the fingernail to make sure that it has no blemishes, no nicks. Yeah. What else? Any other questions? Yeah.
Okay, for kapara, did you use the same shikita as well?
You must, yes. Kaparot, you're referring to the custom before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur. Usually the custom is in some places. Some communities had this custom.
In my neighborhood, they did that.
That's right. You take a chicken and you say, this chicken will be my replacement. We talked yesterday about redeeming the firstborn. So I want to redeem all my sins with the chicken. Instead of me being slaughtered, chas v'chalila, the chicken will be slaughtered, and I'm giving it to tzedakah. The chicken is given to poor people. If you want the poor people to make chicken soup, you have to give them kosher chicken. It has to have proper shechita. So yes, of course, they use proper shechita. Many communities, many rabbis said, this is a bad custom. It looks too much like a sacrifice outside of the Beit HaMikdash. And it's very messy to do it in public areas. It should be done in a slaughterhouse, not on the corner, street corner. Like in your neighborhood, they did kaparot. So it's not. I do kaparot with money. I take some money, I wave it around my head. So this money will be to redeem myself from my sins, and that money goes to tzedakah. It's the same thing as giving a chicken to the poor people and giving them money to the poor people. It's a better way, in my opinion, to do it. But there's traditions. If you have that tradition in your family, you can do it, but you're not obligated to. Anyways, but that's an interesting question. Other questions?
How long can a course take for shechita?
How long do you have?
I have enough time.
Okay, so you can. There's a course of study, and most of the books are in Hebrew, so you have to have somebody to help you translate them. I mean, there are books written in English too. People have learned to become shochtim who don't know Hebrew, so you have to find the book and the teacher who could teach you the laws, and then there's a practical component of somebody to teach you how to do and to show you and to test you. And I think you could do a course in a few months. It's not a very long course.
And then you can work in the slaughterhouse?
You can work in the slaughterhouse, yeah. The problem is that there's a lot of shochatim and not...
Or more shochatim than...
I think.
more
I'm not
pilots than
sure.
planes.
I'm not sure how... what the market is like for shochatim. A lot of people don't like working in a slaughterhouse. It's very hard work.
Yes, it's smelly also.
And it's smelly, and it's very quick. We talked about yesterday how quick they have the chickens. You do like 15 minutes, and it's very hard conditions, and
Also mental, right?
mentally it's hard, of course.
Most slaughterhouses where I went, they were not kosher, of course. But all these people always have like a gaze in their eyes.
Wow.
Because the whole time they slaughter them, so they always will.
Yeah.
I can imagine all this.
Yeah. To deal with
Animals.
death and animals and.
They're nice persons, but.
Ah.
I can affect you, I think.
I think it's like being a dentist.
Oh.
Nobody likes the dentist. It's not so much fun to look in people's teeth, and but they say that the highest rate of suicide, how do you say that in Chinese? Suicide. Dentists. Dentists. They make a lot of money, but it's just so boring, and everybody hates you, and I don't know. Maybe a shochet is like that. I don't know. I'm not a shochet, but my father-in-law was, and my father-in-law's father was. So there's a tradition in the family, but I'm not a shochet. Yes, but I do have a knife.
But if you the shochet, let me say you fix the curse, you can like buy a goat or a lamb, and you can do it in your own garden.
That's right. That's right. If you don't tell the health of the ministry. I think there are rules about slaughter. I don't think you could slaughter anywhere, but if you don't tell anybody, yeah. Take halachically that if you know all the rules, yeah, sure. You know almost all the rules.
Yes.
But tell you the truth, all this is done in the factories today. Most consumers, we don't do shechita, we don't do Nicor ourselves. I don't know how. I'm a rabbi. Not every rabbi knows how to do shechita. For sure, not every shochet knows how to do Nicor. And to check the lungs, that is done by the professionals. There's one more thing which is now usually done by professionals, but some people still do it themselves. And that is what we have to talk about today. The prohibition of blood and how to get the blood out of the animal. Okay? That too, most people, they let them do it in the factory. You have to look for meat that says on it, it's kosher and nimlach. Nimlach. Something that had melicha done to it is nimlach. It had this blood taken out through the process of melicha. Something was nimlach. If it doesn't say that on the package, don't buy it unless you know how to do melicha yourself. Okay?
The Sherita
Yes.
taking 35% of the price of the animal.
It adds a lot of money. Well, because of all these rules and all the time and the effort and some of the animal, you can't eat, right? The Nicor could take off between 15 and 20% of the animal. This Gidan Hashem, the Chelev. Because you lose 20% of the animal, it can go to, you have to sell it to non-Jews. Usually you don't throw it away, but it's not kosher. So, of course, that makes kosher meat more expensive.
It's very.
Yes. It's a problem that it's so expensive. Yes.
Two families.
Yeah.
Went to one place to buy goat.
Because to make it cheaper.
Cheaper, but it turned out to be more expensive.
Ah, really?
Because it must do this, it must do this.
Right, exactly. You pay for the service. It's the service they're doing for you. Especially if you don't know how to do it yourself, you have to pay for the service. Yeah.
They do everything in the factory, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They do accidentally. I buy kosher, but it's not kosher now. They mistakenly they forgot the exact secretar. But if I buy it, should I be blamed on it or them?
So in the Torah, there's when it comes to sinning and being guilty, the Torah makes a distinction between somebody who intentionally violates the law and somebody who unintentionally, not on purpose, violates the law. And the third category is somebody who had no choice. It was beyond his ability to do anything about it. So I think when you buy meat or food in the store that has a good kosher certificate on it, what more could you do? You've done everything you can. So you have the lowest level of responsibility. You're not doing it intentionally. Even unintentionally, you really was beyond your power to know. So probably you're anus. Anus it's called. Mezid, shogeg, and anus, the three levels. Mezid is intentional, shogeg is unintentional, and anus is beyond your extenuating circumstances. It's circumstances which were beyond your control. So yes, you have to. You wouldn't be considered guilty. Maybe the rabbi who let his label go out to be used, maybe he's responsible, or the person who's doing trickery. It happens. Today, there are Arabs who have slaughterhouses and they want to sell their meat to the Jews. And so they buy a label and then they put it on their meat and they sell it to the stores. It's not kosher. They don't know how to do shechita, how to do Nicor. They don't know how to do melicha. They might even write on it, it's kosher and it's nimlach. And really, it's totally not kosher. It's nevela, it's terefa. People buy it because they see it says kosher on it. And so, every once in a while, Rav Lissman puts on the board an announcement He says, it's been announced that this kosher label is not true. It's a cheater. It's a trick. It's just not to be relied on. Because that's what the rabbis who are involved in kosher, they go around to check. And they try to find all the cheaters. Because, of course, it's a big problem. But if you don't know, there's nothing you can do. But you have to always find the reliable kosher certification. So you have to become a little bit knowledgeable. We'll talk about it later. A little bit knowledgeable about the different labels. Okay? Let's talk about the last thing which is prohibited here, and that's the blood. We won't get into all the details. Really, there's two types of blood. There's the blood of the secretar, right? The blood that comes out when the animal's killed, and that's just a higher level of prohibition, punishable by karet, by excision. And the blood in the rest of the body is a different level, but that's also prohibited from the Torah. Bottom line is, but blood is only prohibited once it comes out of the meat. If you could take a piece of meat and eat it with the blood still in it, it's kosher. The problem is when you chew, you'll be squeezing out the blood, and then it's prohibited from the Torah. So we have to get this blood out. The two major ways we get the blood out are called melicha or tziliya. What's melach? Salt. Salting is melicha, is salting, and tziliya is roasting. The fire soaks, it burns the blood out from inside the meat, and the salt also soaks up, right? If it's going to snow next week, I don't know if it's going to snow, and you want to melt the snow, you put out salt, right? Because the salt soaks up the ice. So the salt soaks out the blood from the meat. So you have to know how to do kosher salting so that it takes all the blood out of the animal, out of the meat, yes.
But like if you have a fire in a building, it's also true that all the oxygen gets soaked out because of fire, right?
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, could be.
It's interesting because the blood is like the oxygen is like.
Yeah, it gets soaked out, yeah.
With one technique, take the piece of meat,
Piece of meat, hang it,
with sauteed,
Smoke.
and then
so we're
in the
gonna,
sun.
in the sun, not good enough. According to halacha, sun is not good enough. Let's be fire or salt.
No, but you put salt in the sun.
Salt in the sun, okay, but the rules are, let's learn a little bit about the rules of salting, okay? How to do melicha. Of course, there's a lot of rules. I'll give you the basic ones. Again, most people don't do this at home. It used to be, you would buy kosher meat and you take it home from the slaughter, from the butcher, and you do the salting at home. So everybody knew how to do this, but it's more and more rare. Most housewives have never done melicha themselves. They do it in the factory. Melicha has to be done within 3 days of shechita. Has to be done very close to the shechita. Now there's a debate. Many of the shechita is in South America. The shochtim go to South America, where there's lots and lots of cows, and they go for a month, and they do lots of shechita, and then they send the meat to Israel. But the problem is, you only have 3 days to do the melicha. So now I think they do a lot of melicha there too. But there is a question, because some companies, what they wanted to do is, we'll do the shechita, but we'll freeze the meat right away. And some rabbis say that's good enough. the meat's frozen, the 3 days don't start ticking. The clock doesn't start ticking if it's frozen. So you could do the melicha in Israel if it's been frozen. Some companies do this. Some rabbis don't like this idea. And so that's, again, another reason why you would have different rabbinic authorities saying this is kosher according to this rabbi, not according to that rabbi. There's a lot of details. In any case, officially it has to be within 3 days of the slaughter, you have to do melicha for it to be kosher. Tzliyah, by the way, can be done a year later. Doesn't matter. As long as the blood didn't dry out, but maybe not a year, I'm exaggerating. But melicha, other rules of melicha. Usually what we do is there's 3 parts to melicha. 3 parts to melicha. Stage 1, you have to rinse off the meat. Rinse, wash.
Acid?
Water. With water.
From the knife or from the
Take the meat, or the piece of meat, the rack of lamb, the chicken, whatever it is, and you put it in a bucket of water.
Yes, it's very kosher.
That's the first stage. Second stage, you have to take it out of the water once it's been rinsed off, and it's dry again. It doesn't have to be totally dry, but not dripping. Then you put salt on it. The salt, even in the non-Jewish world, is many times it's called koshering salt. Have you seen that label before? It's a little bit bigger than the regular salt that we use on a shaker. It's not so small, because that kind of small salt, maybe it'll just dissolve into the meat and it won't pull the blood out. So it has to be a little bit bigger. It can't be so big, because then it won't really come in contact with the meat. So it has to be, it's called coarse or koshering salt. It's a little bit bigger. It's like nuggets about this size. And so you cover the meat with koshering salt, both sides, and you let it sit like that. You can put it in the sun if you like, but I don't think maybe it goes a little faster. Ideally, you should be in the salt on a place where it could be on the salt for an hour. Ideally for an hour, 1 hour. 18 minutes is good enough. 18 minutes is also kosher enough, even though it doesn't get out as much as it does in an hour. Most rabbis say 18 minutes in salt is enough. And then you have to, stage 3. Stage 3 is soaking it in water 3 times, or you can rinse it off. Rinse it off very well. You rinse off all the salt, you have to wash it again. So there's washing, salting, and washing. 3 stages. And then you can cook it in your oven, and then you can put it in your chicken soup. What happens if afterwards you cooked up your chicken and you see there's some red stuff coming out? It's not a problem. Once you've done the salting process, everything else is just called wine. The wine of the meat. It's not blood. It's not called halachically blood anymore. It's just, you're allowed, even if you see some red stuff coming out, that's red stuff. It's not blood. If you've done kosher melicha, then it's kosher. Briefly. What the other method? The other method is very easy. Tzliyah. What is tzliyah? Roasting. Over fire.
Even organ, right?
Yes. There's only 1 or 2 exceptions. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But all meats could be either melicha or tzliyah. Tzliyah is roasting. You put it on a grill, or you put it on a skewer, and you roast it on the fire. The fire draws out the blood. At the same time that it cooks it, it makes it edible. And as long as it's there for enough time for it to be half edible, it's kosher. And so that's the quickest. No 3 stages.
Then cooking it already, right?
And it's cooking at the same time, so it's fine. It's great. The roasting is very convenient if you want to have roasted meat. It doesn't help you for chicken soup, right? You can roast it first and then put it in the soup, but you don't have to. Yeah.
If you don't use a shehita, a person qualified for.
Yes. None of the rest of this matters. It's in the vela. You stop. If there's no kosher shechita, the rest of this doesn't matter.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's the big problem.
And some people.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. In the Arabs are trying to cheat us sometimes in the non-kosher slaughterhouse. So it's kosher.
All the meat must be tzriya.
No, or either or.
Oh.
Either one or the other. One or the other.
But
Either milicha or tzliya, salting or roasting.
But this is what they do at home, or also still in the shop place? Because the roasting is what you do at home then.
Most people buy the meat already salted, and then if they want to have a barbecue, they put it on the grill. But not because they want to make it kosher. It's already kosher. It's already been salted.
But who's roasting to make it kosher?
Very few people. I'm going to give you the one exception in just a second. Yeah.
If you you in the jungle, you find a chicken, you do shchita with kosher.
If you know how to do shchita, you can go from, what does a chicken say in Chinese? In English, a chicken says cock-a-doodle-doo. What does a chicken say in Danish? Kukulukku. Right? Not Danish. In Dutch is what I meant to say. Dutch. Talk. Okay. What does a chicken say in
It's the same.
your language? It's say cool. Okay. You can take a chicken from cock-a-doodle-doo. In Hebrew, it's kukuriku. You can go from kukuriku to Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam Shehakol Niyeh Bidvaro in half an hour. Because you do kosher shechita. You don't have to worry about Nicor. You don't have to worry about any chelev. All you do is put it on the grill. Tzliya takes out all the blood and it makes it kosher. You can have a meal very quickly. Shechita, tzliya, you're okay.
If I'm in the jungle, I take a chicken, I put it on the barbecue, then it's
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But the kosher meat you mean, right?
Yeah, this would be a kosher chicken. A kosher chicken, he's saying. Chicken. If you know how to do shechita. Sure, it's very quick. Roasting is very quick. But not everybody likes roast. People like to have, chicken soup. People like to have shawarma. People like to have different things. This is not working. I don't know why. Maybe I'll turn it off and on. Maybe that's better. Okay, so I have to tell you the exception. The exception is one organ, which is full of blood. So much blood, we said it yesterday, right? What is it?
The lever.
Not lungs. Lungs was for checking to see if they have no terefa in it. Liver, that's right. Liver in Hebrew is kaved. Kaved, or kaved is liver. And liver, the rabbis said, the only way to make it kosher is with tzliya. Only with roasting. You cannot make it kosher with salting. The salt is not strong enough to get out all the blood. So liver has to be made kosher with roasting.
What about the oven?
You can roast it in an oven. You can roast it in an oven. Yes.
The covered or boiled, don't eat the covered. Only.
Kaved, after it's been roasted, then you can cook it up. Then you can boil it. But first you have to get rid of the blood by roasting it. Okay, and then you can cook it or boil it or chop it up or whatever you want. You don't have to eat it that way. You can then cook it. But first, to get out the dam, you have to do tzliya on the kaved. Are we speaking Hebrew? Right? To get the dam out of the kaved, you do tzliya. You know the terms. Amazing. Yes, questions?
What about the eggs?
Okay. So, we've been talking about dam in the meat. There is a prohibition of blood when it appears in a chicken and in a little chick. And we know that an egg grows a little chick inside. And the little chick develops so that it has blood. You haven't done malicha on it, so you haven't done the tzliya on it, so it's not kosher. So this used to be more of a problem because only an egg which can make a chicken is going to have blood, which is prohibited. Eggs that are fertilized can make a chick. Most of the eggs that we buy in the market, they keep the males, roosters, they keep them away from the females. And so they're never fertilized. And so even if you find a little spot of blood in the eggs in the modern Western world, where the industry is very careful to separate the roosters from the hens, it's not really blood. It's not blood from a chick you could never get a chick. On farms, in some countries, they're not so careful. You could have, some of those eggs will actually have little chicks in them, and the blood might be a blood which is forbidden blood. And so the truth is, the halakha is that you should check every egg before you fry it or before you cook it to make sure that there's no blood in it. You crack it into a glass. You look in the glass, say, oh, okay, I see yellow, I see white, I see brown, no problem. But if I see red, you have to throw away the egg.
All the eggs?
That's the standard was for centuries. Nowadays, in the reality where the chicken farmers are very careful to keep separate the males from the females, they're not fertilized eggs. So really, you could eat it, but there's a rabbinic stricture. If you see blood in the egg, you have to throw it out. But if you don't check, and if you don't see it, or if it's not separate inside the egg, it's really allowed because it's not really blood. It's not really blood. It's just part of the hormones. Sometimes the chickens, the eggs have that. So if you know that it comes from eggs which have not been fertilized, it's really allowed. But the custom is that we check them. Let me just see for a second here. I'll double check. But that's the short answer is, so yeah, I check my eggs, but if you go to somewhere, to a restaurant or a hotel, and you see they're not checking the eggs, it's still kosher, because really all of our eggs in the Western world are not fertilized eggs. And so the blood is not really prohibited. It's just a stricture. It's to train us to, see blood, you have to put it aside. And so I do that. But if I don't, it's still kosher in most places.
So chickens can lay eggs without being fertilized.
Exactly.
I never knew.
Yeah, well, you learn something new every day.
I always thought when you're still, I always thought like, hey, maybe if I take an egg and I put it under my pillow,
No, it has to be fertilized. Yeah.
You know, why the rooster is always in the morning?
Why?
He didn't have no wife in the
Exactly.
That's why.
Sorry.
Okay, boys will be boys. Tov. So I just want to add one thing. If you have a question, go ahead. What's the question?
If I take, let's say I crack 4 eggs, then the 5th egg I crack got the blood. So I draw everything.
If they're all together, yeah, that's why we do one egg at a time. You put it in the glass, put it into the bowl. Next one in the glass, put it in the bowl. Next one in the glass, put it in the bowl. Because if you put them all 5 in one glass, and then you see one blood, you have to throw them all out. Yeah.
Exactly. Last about right when I go to Sendirot, I used to with all lots of people we are gathering to celebrate the Sabbath, right?
Wonderful.
And then I take one plate, whole plate. I take it, everything is fine. But suddenly, the last second part, when I take it, there is blood. I throw all away.
Good. That's the custom. That's the custom. As I said, there's room to be lenient, but the custom is, if you see blood, you have to throw it out. It's a prohibition in the Torah. In this case, it's only a custom because it hasn't been fertilized. It's not really blood. It's just. But any dark spot, a red spot, Okay, so one more thing I want to tell you, and that is that there's a question about roasting, tzliya. And here too, you might find difference between rabbis. Kosher and special kosher. Super kosher. Because the custom, there's 2 issues. One is, can you roast on a sheet of metal, the fire is underneath, not direct fire. Right? You can roast on a barbecue, direct fire onto the liver. Or if you go to the grill restaurant here, what do they have? They have a plate, a grill plate. It's flat, grill plate. So some rabbis are lenient and they say, so the problem is with the grill plate, it has to let the blood, the roasting is drawing out the blood. You don't want the blood to stay there. The blood has to be drained out. So that's why a grate is better, because then the blood can go down through the grate. So some rabbis are machmir that it has to be an open fire, not on a flat plate. And so all those restaurants that you see that serve you liver, me'orav Yerushalmi, mixed Jerusalem mixed organs, they're lenient because they allow you to do the grilling of the liver on the plate. If there's fire there, there's room to be lenient because the fire draws out the liver. As long as there's no receptacles for the blood, the plate is flat, then you're okay. Second issue is what happens afterwards. There is an Ashkenazi custom. Majority of Ashkenazim actually say that when you use roasting to kosher livers, the grill gets filled with the blood. And the pan underneath that the blood drips into, it's not kosher. So you have to have a special rack, a special grill, and a special plate underneath, pan for underneath, which is only for roasting the liver, because it absorbs the blood and it stays non-kosher forever. It's not kosher. So you have a set of a rack and a pan only for roasting liver. I remember in my house when I was growing up, my mother had a special pan. She told me it's only for liver. It had like holes in it. The pan had holes in it, and underneath it was like a tray, a drip to collect the drips, and that's the way she roasted liver. She made kosher the liver. There are rabbis, even Ashkenazi rabbis, who say that the custom in many parts of Europe was that it's unnecessary. As the fire is taking the blood out of the liver, it takes the fire. It takes the blood out of the vessel too. It takes it out of the skewer too. It takes it out of the tray also, and so you don't have to have separate vessels for roasting liver. Until today, you'll see most Ashkenazim are stringent, and they want to be roasting the liver on separate dishes, on separate vessels. But some rabbis are more lenient, and they say, like all those grill places, right? They grill on the plate the liver, and then they keep using the same plate for cooking up the hearts and the other inner parts that they grill up. So it's allowed, according to some rabbis. So yes, good morning.
Feeling better. Can I borrow Nicor for a few minutes?
Okay.
Why is everyone smiling here? Oh, you're learning Torah with us. You're not getting Weinberg. Fantastic. Can I come on?
He's my cheerleader. Question.
In China, your person lost many blood, much blood. She needed to eat a drug to supply, to blood. But the drug is made of blood.
You can put it into your artery, you just can't eat it. You're not allowed to eat.
Can eat.
No.
The drug cannot eat.
The drug, so, yes, I understand. Yeah. It's a problem. If you're going to ingest it into your body, it's a problem. It's an interesting question. Usually you get blood in your intravenous, into the vein. That's allowed. That's allowed. If you needed to save your life, you could probably ingest it also. But it's more of a problem to eat. I didn't know that they do that. They actually have capsules of medicine which is made with blood. With blood. They take blood.
Without blood, but
Made from blood. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem. If you're so sick that you're going to die, of course, pikuach nefesh, to save a life, you can. That overrides the law of kosher. But if it's not pikuach nefesh, it could be a problem. It could be a problem if it's not a danger to your life. You find a different medicine or get the blood in a different way. But to swallow blood is a problem. It's an interesting question. Maybe they did something to it so it's not considered blood anymore. Maybe they processed it. You have to ask a rabbi. You have to ask a rabbi and with specific which medicine and how it was made. Maybe it could be kosher, but it's quite problematic to drink blood. Yes?
So what you say, you have to know on those pills, it's not paracetamol but ibuprofen.
Yeah.
But you have the rose?
The capsule, which it's inside, yeah. So it has to be kosher also.
Yes,
Yeah.
but the color is like kind of color and made from blood. Not red, but also not pork.
Red is usually food coloring. It's coloring. It's not blood. It's not blood. It's not blood. Blood is very expensive. They wouldn't put that in pills. Yeah. Yes.
Some rabbis say the medical, not about kosher, not kosher, just medical can save your life, everything okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you need it to save your life, for sure. But sometimes you're sick and you're not going to die. You just want to feel better.
Yeah.
So then you have to keep the kosher laws. Now it's true, swallowing a pill is not the same as eating. Right? You eat, you chew it, and you get the juice and the taste. I put a pill in my mouth and I swallow it. It's not a normal way of eating. So there's room to be lenient. That's why you have to ask a rabbi exactly what is in there and for what purpose. And we can build a case for allowances. But in general, we say food is not kosher. We don't want to ingest it. We don't want to have non-kosher food in our bodies. Okay? Beseder. Tomorrow, this is a test. You have to know all these Hebrew words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Hebrew words. 12. 12. Kaved. It's another Hebrew word. Okay, 12 Hebrew words in one day. Can you do it? Memorize it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. 12 words. You can do it.
I don't understand.
You're supposed to memorize these words for tomorrow.
Oh, those.
Yeah, the Hebrew words, and the ones that are circled are Hebrew words. Nevela, trefa, shchita, gidanashe, chelev, halak, dam, melicha, tzliya, kaved, shuman, Nicor. Those are 12 words that you have to know by tomorrow. Okay?